of the measures so taken. I can repeat it, Mullah. Yes. The interplay of constitutional provisions regarding powers in the federal structure for identification and implementation of the measures so taken. But before we go into this, Mullah, what is very necessary to understand is, very briefly, the concept of reservation. It obviously has two perspectives which are very strongly entrenched in our social and legal fraternity. The first perspective, of course, is of those who believe they are entitled and the second perspective, which most certainly needs attention of this honorable bench, is of those who are actually in need. Murad, before I go any further, Murad, we have to understand that reservation is no benevolence. It is not an act of benevolence by the entitled to the needy at all. If at all, it is compensation for centuries of suppression of the needy, if at all. And Mullah, nothing would correct itself on its own. So therefore, the established requirement is that of an affirmative action, what we are addressing your lordships on today. The only way to provide succor to the needy is the affirmative action on which we will be addressing your lordships. Why this has come about to be, Mullah, is not far to see, especially in our country, where the caste system, Mullah, has prevailed for centuries, we are all aware, and there has always been a deep divide, and the ramifications of that have resulted, Mullah, in certain castes being marginalized to a status of despair and almost of non-existence in the social fabric of our society. What has come to those who have been marginalized, in the generic sense of the word, we can call backwardness, because that word will occur repeatedly as we address your lordships and refer to the judgments. In a generic sense, that word is backwardness, as opposed to what we never talk about and take it for granted for the people who have it, is forwardness. Forwardness is taken as an entitlement by those who have it, but what we need to really look at is the backwardness. And the backwardness, in my humble submission, can be faceted in many ways. It being social backwardness or economic backwardness or educational backwardness, so on and so forth. We can have a debate on this alone. That for those who suffer, what is the kind of economic and backwardness that they are victims of? But the issue, Mullah, is the cure. We've been striving to find this cure through a series of judgments, through a series of legislation, through a series of executive decisions. But obviously, Mullah, because we stand before your Lordship to address again on this issue, means that much needs to be done. And what has been done is most certainly not enough. But if we were to put it very simply, though not a panacea for this ill of society, a cure definitely is equality. The only thing by which these lines can be blurred, and we have a society that the Constitution envisages, the cure is eventual equality. Now, Mullah, to achieve this, we must understand, however overrated the issue of, to achieve the end of the sacrosanct ideal, which is equality. Now, as in everything else, a tool is of no consequence till in the hand of a good sculptor. Merely providing for reservation is not the answer. A tool has to be used for the purpose that it has been designed to achieve the result that we seek to so desperately achieve for our country, which is equality. And this implementation can be done most certainly through law, definitely through the executive action of the state, and also through social debate. And the constitutional framers had this intent very clear in their mind while providing for reservation, that the only reason which weighed with them was the realization of the disparity that existed, the disparity that was hard to ignore, the disparity which was in the face of the country when we became independent. And the effort was to achieve Bharat, India, where eventually everyone has a right to equality. So, Lord, Article 14 is what we strive to achieve. And everything else thereafter, in Part 3 or the Part has been designed to achieve that end, is equality of opportunity. It is not a case where we are before your Lordship to say that somebody who has not played could definitely not have won. That's not the case. The case here is, did he have a chance to play? Did he have the opportunity to play? Did he have the means to play? And did he even have the path to the ground where the game was played? The answer is no. When the privileged play the game and the top amongst them win, we fail to think about those who couldn't even make it to the playground because of the inadequacy of the means that they do not possess. So therefore, Mullah, I'll read the preamble, but what comes out of it is that equality of status and opportunity is the hallmark of our constitution. And the assurance that we propose to give it is an assurance of dignity. Because no opportunity or status without dignity is complete. You cannot give opportunity as charity, because charity takes away the dignity. There have to be provisions enacted and implemented in law to achieve this equality of status and opportunity with dignity. And this is what can effectively eradicate what we call backwardness. Well, there is a reason why, as I said, after 75 years of independence, we are still struggling to achieve this goal. It's easier written than implemented. The words have been there. The intent has been there. The implementation has been there. But there is not much achievement to show for it. Because what has been precipitated by centuries of suppression was not expected to go away in a decade. It wasn't. As some people might say, 10 years was the limit set for reservation to achieve what centuries had caused. Can't be done. We are very well aware of it. But let us not marginalize the efforts that we've made, but most certainly we're not there as yet. And this matter is yet another effort to convince your lordships to lay down a law which will eventually help the benefits of reservation to percolate down to the strata who need it the most. The reason is, Lord, that a class of people belonging to varied castes, these are two different concepts, Lord. As we go along, we'll obviously dwell on them. That caste and class are totally two different concepts. Many number of castes in India, Lord, are stuck, unfortunately, in a self-deprecating cycle of occupational drudgery. Even today, there is one thing in inheritance which a lot of castes get, which is their occupation. Scavengers, sweepers, cobblers, blacksmiths. What they've handed down in inheritance, legacy, and estate to their next generation is an occupation which will never allow them to come out till 80 by what we call affirmative action. The reason is that there is a condition. We are all, as human beings, victims of conditioning. We are conditioned to believe that everything is all right. We are conditioned to believe that things are the way they are because they are meant to be. Oft heard dialogue is, if these people were not to do this job, who else will? And that is the reason these things should remain as it is, but that definitely is a mindset we need to shake ourselves out. There are no ironclad barriers, which should keep the backward confined to their backwardness just because what they do is what nobody else would do. And their not doing what they are doing will not suit the entitled. That is the answer. We have to change these prejudices. We have to change the mindset. The problem is the resistance. The problem is the resistance to change that mindset. The problem is that it seems like a huge shift in a societal mindset to steer ourselves away from it and think that why can everybody in the society not be equal? And as we go along, the core issue here is not only the advantage and the disadvantage, but the more advantage and the more disadvantage within the disadvantage. That is the issue that we are addressing, Your Lordship. Undoubtedly, Malad, this has to come at the grassroots level of society. Undoubtedly. What happens in the mind is controlled by exposure, mostly to what is taught in each and every household of this country. That has to change. But it still does not take away the obligations upon the state to aid and assist this change which either in the form of bringing about a law by the legislature, decisions of the executive, and more important than anything else, the laying down of the law by your lordships, which will eventually bring this change. Because once your lordships lay down a law, the acceptance of a proposition goes up tremendously. Because your lordships say so, there is a dispensation of the public to follow the law. So from either of these three wings, if an assistance and aid is coming, in achieving these results, it is more important than the other. We cannot downplay any part of this. Because, as I put it, Murad, normally when we argue cases of reservation, a very common plea is raised that, my lord, I have 99% marks. I am being ousted by a person who has 56% marks. Is that fair? Yes, it is. It is fair because the person who has 56, he never had the means to be brought up in a family that you come up in. He never had the means to go to a school that you went to the college that you went to, and to the competition preparation that you went to. And today, 99 is not your achievement, it is a concentration of all the factors that you've been through. That 56 is in spite of the factors that that child is. He has today reached 56, starting from 0. Your ride has been of an airplane from your birth. This person has walked his way to 56. That is what we need to understand. That the person who got 56 had no access to a dignified life. He was brought up in a neighborhood which did not give him any access to good education. What to talk of employment? And eventually, what are we striving to achieve here? By way of employment, we are wanting to make that person a part of governance. He has to feel that I am a part of running this country. I am a part of aiding the growth of this country by getting employment. That is why we mostly be on 16.4. So for that purpose, the obligation of the state is best discharged by affirmative action under 15.4 and 16.4 to give this person who is backward access. We have to give him at least an opportunity. I will go as far as to say that the old phrase that you can take a horse to water, you can't make him drink. We will have to make an effort to make that horse drink, because that horse has never seen water. That horse does not know that it is this water which will eventually quench his thirst for becoming a part of the world. He wants it, but he doesn't know how to get it, because he is stuck in a cycle of occupational drudgery, which the society doesn't let him come out. Though opportunities are available, but they are not being capitalized because of, I would not say the intent, but the effectiveness of the implementation is lacking. But eventually, if we all agree on this, that the goal is equality of opportunity, then what we urge before your lordships today is that measures need to be taken to make this goal not illusionary or form, not a mere provision on paper. These goals do not have to be illusionary or formal, but they have to be end-oriented. If I can put it simply, they have to be end-oriented. Results have to show. And in this, there is a heavy onus upon the state, either at the center or the state level, for achieving this equality of opportunity. Murad, this implementation has happened in phased manner. There have been amendments in the Constitution, there have been large number of executive orders, memorandums, laws, legislations brought out by various states. One of them of my state is under challenge before your lordships, from where this litigation arose. Just to put it briefly, though it's not a relevant issue that your lordships would be deciding. In Punjab, we brought out an act in 2006, where out of the posts which were reserved for the scheduled castes, 50% of the posts were reserved for Valmikis and Mazhabis.
That is your first circular which you got out.
Not this, yeah. So this was not circular apart, this was the legislative act which was under challenge.
The circular is
Yes.
the circular has been shut down.
That's
What
so therefore the legislation in 2006 and section 4, subsection 5 reserved 50% of the posts for Valmiki, Sikhs and Mazhabis. And there is a twofold implementation which saves it from the vice of discrimination and reverse reservation and reverse discrimination as we know it. This reservation in the 2006 Act was done on a twofold check and balance. One, that this reservation was limited to 50%, which in the development of law has become the Lakshman Rekha, which we are all advised not to cross. And the second check and balance was that this was implemented on a preferential basis. So, as I would say, this was not an act of exclusion by any standard. By any standard, what Chennai Abroad seems to say is that this would be an act of exclusion. No. This was, if at all, an act of inclusion of those who were the most backward of the backward, to bring them, if not at par, at least up from where they stood.
Sir, when you say implemented on a preferential basis,
That's right.
can you elaborate that? How is it implemented on a preferential basis?
Not so. Suppose there are 10 vacancies for scheduled castes in a particular year or a particular recruitment. 5 were reserved for Balbipis and Madhupis. If they were available, and if they were not available, it was to go to SC others, which are Ramdasiyas and other scheduled castes which were available. So in every recruitment, one would ensure that 10 scheduled castes definitely came in. But at the first instance, the right of preference of 5 of those 10 was to go to Balbipis and Madhupis.
It was carry forward for the
Carry forward was not en bloc.
for the SC together.
Yes.
But not for the
Not
and the
no.
within the SC.
They were exhausted within that group. So therefore, if I can put it in cost-effective way, this preference-based reservation was not at anybody's cost. It was not that if they did not get it, nobody would get it. If they did not reach the Mulat cutoff for getting that reservation, a scheduled caste only would. And your lordships are right, those scheduled caste vacancies were to be then, in common law, as we all know it, to be carried forward and not counted towards reservation, this, that, and the other. All those parameters were to follow. It was not that they would either be converted to general or not be filled up and left vacant. There is nothing of that. So therefore, that is the core bullet, that if you cannot even as much as give preference to somebody who is really needy, without that being at the cost of somebody, and that act of the state government is what is that direction. We are here to urge that.
Actually, there is an element of exclusion. I mean, let's not gloss over it. The point only is this, that because the same exclusion which applies to reservation per se
of excluding merit, yes, we all put.
Posts are reserved.
Yes.
Posts are reserved for backward communities. There is necessarily an exclusion of the forward community. They are competing for those posts, right? Yet our constitutional jurisprudence permits it. Why? Because we treat equality as a substantive equality, not formal equality.
That's right.
Therefore, post NM Thomas, we have now developed jurisprudence to the effect that reservation is not really a breach of equality, but
in aid of it.
But interestingly, the same argument which applies for reservation for the backward communities of law, the backward versus forward, would also apply within the backward community. Because what now we are really doing here by the legislature brought about was this, that within the reservation of seats for the scheduled castes, we take it for a moment, this is the big.
That's right.
Out of the 15.5%, which falls within the overall 50% cap, 50% of the 15.5% is reserved for the Madhabi seats and the Balbipis.
That's
right. So, to that extent to which the reservation is exclusively carved out for them. In other backward castes, cannot compete for those posts which are set apart from them. So, in a sense,
in the first instance,
in that sense, out and the remaining should get that benefit.
Yes. Now, my lord, what your lordships are suggesting.
Your argument is among the backward, there are more backward.
Yes.
And therefore, they require a more special treatment.
Yes.
Than the
Yes.
backward.
Yes. Yes. But what Justice Nath is suggesting is
Your
ultimate.
your argument also would be at two levels. One is the equality argument, and the other is the federal argument, which you also made. One equality argument possible is that it is open to the state to classify within the schedule caste by identifying those who are really within the state of relative marginalization.
Absolutely.
That's the substantive equality argument. And if you can do that between the general communities and backward caste, why can you not apply the same principle?
The same principle there.
The second approach is the federal argument.
Yes.
That every state within the nation is peculiarly conversant with the conditions of the caste and communities which are prevalent in that state.
So right.
And therefore, what Parliament has done is to designate caste and tribe for the entirety of the nation. But that does not take away the power of every state within its own territory.
Yes.
Saying that these are the communities within my state
Yes.
who are particularly marginalized,
Yes.
are worthy of special attention.
Benefits, as they call it,
benefits. And there is nothing in the constitutional structure to prevent the state from doing that, because it ultimately holds responsibility to its own death.
Absolutely. But now, what this is not saying is the ultimate argument, which they rightly note, is for the Parliament.
You must have done some exercise
Yes.
in
In identifying the backward within the backward.
making the backward.
And because of that,
Service environment.
absolutely. But now the
What are the parameters or the considerations you've taken into in identifying?
various reports which show that those people are two things. One, they continue to be backward, and or in spite of being what they are not adequately represented in services and state. These are two parameters. One, are they really the backward within the backward? Two, whether they are backward within the backward or not so backward, or forward backward or backward forward, they are still not represented. So there is something lacking somewhere in the matter of policy. And that is what the state seeks to address.
Now, actually, do you have some population data on what is the total population of SCs in Punjab, and what is the population of the Balmikis and Madhavisis within that group of SCs?
We do. They are all statistically available. But why I am not stressing upon that is because the reference to your lordship's primarily.
Numerical argument, not a numerical
Yes,
argument.
it's not a numerical argument. The argument is, first of all, can you do it? As Mrs. Nath is correctly put, can you do it? If you can, and the answer is yes, who is to do it? Parliament, state, executive, legislative. And if who is to do it is determined, then how that state do it, how is not the issue for your lordship.
Sort of laid down the jurisprudential framework in the first part of the proposal.
Yes.
Now, why don't you go into the nitty-gritty of it?
Yes.
So, as the statutory provision.
I will come to that in just a minute.
Then we look at Chinaya.
Yes.
And why we look at the law before Chinaya and after Chinaya. Chinaya in 2005. Chinaya has then been overtaken by a lot of law on the
Absolutely.
subject.
Now, look, why I am trying to distinguish that argument is that Chinaya proceeds on the basic premise that exercise of power for the purposes of identifying the backward within the backward
is only of Parliament.
Is only of the Parliament, and any exercise by the state to that effect tinkers with that power. What Chinaya has possibly failed, we go through the judgment and see if I am correct, is that 16(4) is an independent provision which has to be exercised by the state, either center or the state government. The powers which give the enabling provision, an exercise to be conducted by forming an opinion, is totally within the legislative domain and the executive domain of the state government. There, Parliament does not fit. So the distinction is, for instance, that there is a room in which benefits are being provided. In common parlance, 341 and 342 are the paths with which you get into the room. That's all. Are you entitled to be in the room or not? The president decides first list, which is a one-time exercise by the president, that whether you're entitled to be in the room or not. Then, as common culture goes, we have VIP pass. So then the parliament decides that whether who's in the room is entitled to be in the room or to be displaced from the room, or who's outside can be given an entry into the room. There are two different exercises. One is a one-time exercise by the president. He issues an order in 1950 for Punjab, let's say, that these 26 castes are entitled to be in the room for the purpose of benefits which these scheduled castes are entitled. Understood? Thereafter, that power is taken away from the president and vests totally in the parliament. That whether those inside, as your Lordship put it, to remain inside any longer or not, and whether those outside have reached a stage where they now become entitled to be inside. So what is very interesting is that even the Constitution in 341 and 342 accepts this exercise to be a two-way street. The power of the president is a one-way street. Once you issue an order, in common words, you become Pankaj official. You cannot touch that order on the executive side anymore. Once that exercise has been done, then forever the parliament will remain vested with the power to legislate,
to more community,
to include more or to exclude. So Malaj was right. That power to exclude, that you attain that forwardness, which does not anymore entitle you to be called as a backward class. You have to exit and make place for other people. As your Lordship sir put it, not.
So, checking for the Indian system of my learning very system, if within a particular backward class,
Please,
certain castes have reached that position and they are on par.
please.
As we pointed out that this should move out.
You should exit and make
But then that is again for the parliament.
only for the parliament. Only.
But then, sir,
Now, that is what.
you are getting an important. Just giving a thought for the
Yes, Malaj are absolutely right.
Now what happens? The person from Shirul Tribe gets into IAS, IPS.
That's right.
So once you are IPS, IAS, these children don't suffer the disadvantages that the person from the category 1 is having in the individual
Malaj are right.
But then, by virtue of the they can also enter the beginning of the second year. And again, that's not your
So your
Thank you, madam. So, similarly, not having much to look at.
now it is not after that. Now it is. But that's again not. Yes. So that is not the area I am immediately coming to. But just to take the example forward of what my Lordship survey has pointed out, that who enters or exits the room, let's put it as a two-way street. Who enters or exits the room is the prerogative of the president, followed by the parliament forever.
But you are saying for
The distribution of the space and the benefits inside
those who are already within the room for the state.
yes, not to say that those who are underweight will be given a free meal. Let us take it that able to be in the room for those benefits. Very well understood. A person is 49, still in that room. There's a person who's 27 kg who needs it far more. Are you going to treat both of them equally?
But let me test the argument to it logically.
Please.
To test the argument.
Please.
To test the argument. Can you say that we are giving 100% reservation out of the scheduled caste only to these two communities?
Cannot be and should not be. Why?
Why?
Because then you are excluded. Without legislating, you have virtually done what you want to do.
You have a problem there. Because if you are making it short of 100%, exclusion is rejected. So you can't place it on the exclusionary argument. 100% is an absolute
That's
exclusion.
it.
But 50%
That's
is an exclusion where those who have complete for everything. Even the backward.
That's right.
So there's an element of exclusion. So you have to answer it if you have to. Saying that Sinaya was correct. Sinaya has overlooked our views. But you can't place it on this that you have not excluded. You have to place it on a more sound jurisprudence.
Whether it's preferential treatment frequent.
They are applied to principle of 50%, which is considered as a responsibility.
Because in institutional preference, not institutional preference in medical.
Otherwise, even by providing 50% reservation for backward classes, it's not 50% for the general community.
And that your lordships have upheld. Indira Sani, which of course went into this issue in detail, said that otherwise you will be inhibited in taking up any exercise with reservation. Because if you say that you cannot do it because it amounts to exclusion, it will not be the intent of the Constitution. If you have to do it, whether you can place checks and balances on it, is the intent of the Constitution. And that 50% is, of course, a judge made. Where your lordships have held, let's be fair.
But I go one step further.
Please.
The state bound by the 50% gap while applying the distribution of benefits within the 50%. Why should we, why should we, because otherwise, not very